So I think one of the things that's particularly interesting about skate culture is that it is a hyper masculine realm, right? And that's like not that's not like a debatable thing. That's like an
Subjective.
an objective statement that I feel comfortable making. Um, but I think that one thing that's particularly interesting about it is the context in which you engage in that subculture. And so where I grew up, it was not considered like a masculine thing to do. Like playing lacrosse was considered a masculine thing to do. And so like, for me as an adolescent who was engaging in skate culture with a really small number of people who are also all male, but that, to do that then in turn brought things like homophobic slurs and kind of this basically creating like a hierarchy within what masculinity is, and that like what I was interested in and what I was choosing to do, even though it was absolutely a masculine space, was not like it was this liminality, right? There were all these gray spaces of masculinity. And so I think as an adult now with being able to look kind of retroactively at that, like what does that mean to be in a hypermasculine space that actually doesn't feel hypermasculine in the moment that you're experiencing it, and how does that shape the way that you think about the world later?
Mm-hmm. And I had the exact parallel experience, right? We were outsiders. We were the kids that like we weren't the jocks. We were also kids that were interested in art, which was also not seen as a particularly masculine, at least when you're a teenager. Obviously now looking at the art world, you realize that how much of the art world is driven by masculinity. But as kids, like if you're a kid that likes to draw or whatever, it's like, oh, what's wrong with you? You don't play sports and you like to draw. Like what's up with that? In that same sort of homophobic way. And the one thing I would say in agreeing with Alex that it is a hyper masculine thing that we're a part of, but it's also a really caring and giving thing. Like we're all, at least the crew that I grew up with, and I know Alex's crew that he grew up with, it was so much a part of our family. It was about an escape for us from maybe our home lives between all of our friends, and it was like a really safe, caring space. And so I think that also changed. That changes the conversation for me a little bit around the idea of masculinity, that like Alex and I's caring relationship is built because we both had these similar experiences through skateboarding.
There's also a class element to it that I think is really important to consider, and that to not be able to afford to like do traveling sports or like all these, like equipment and league fees, and like skateboarding was something that we could do with a group of like super intimate, close friends that wasn't prohibitively expensive, and that, like you could support each other in like swapping equipment or whatever it was, that, it didn't feel exclusionary because of money. And so I think that was a really important part for me, was that it was a space that I didn't feel, because I think tied to this notion of masculinity, it's like to be really good at sports generally meant like your parents had money so they could like send you to camp and like buy you all this and like, when you didn't have that, and it was evident that you didn't have that, it was just another way to be kind of othered within that space,